Geek. Talking baseball every week. 'Cause they're Gleeman and the Geek.
And welcome to Gleeman and the Geek, presented by Black Stack Brewing, now in a liquor store near you. I am John Bonus of Twins Daily. With me, Aaron Gleeman of The Athletic. And I think about this time last week, we were talking about hoping that the team, with all the injuries, could tread water. And the baseball gods took that a little too literally, Mr. Gleeman.
Yeah, it was a rain-soaked, dreary, I'll just say miserable 3 days.
And you weren't the one in the rain.
Yeah, we only had to, I guess, spend 2 days there because Tuesday's festivities, which theoretically would have been a doubleheader Tuesday, but that got canceled. Basically Monday night, everyone knew that wasn't going to happen. So they did complete the necessary 15 innings on Wednesday.
That's amazing that they got 2 games out, 2 games in during that 3 day stretch. That's crazy to me.
Yeah, it was. I think the split between the two teams was. Everyone should have just agreed to that and stayed in their hotels or whatever. Like, it was such a. The first game, took 3 days basically to play. 3 innings on Monday and then 6 innings on Wednesday morning or afternoon. It was a very weird game because Joe Ryan started basically, but was technically the first relief appearance of his career. And the plan was obviously you get the 3 innings from Ober on Monday. They just wanted Joe Ryan to make a normal start and hopefully throw 6 innings and just finish the game. And he got through 5, allowing 1 run, and then came out for the 6th, which was actually the 9th. And first 2 batters reached, so they had to replace him. They didn't have to, but they chose to replace him with Duran, who then blows the lead. And then you're thinking, oh my God, like to lose a game 3 days in the making that you had a 2-run lead and then, a bigger lead than that. But then Kody Clemens came through with a walk-off double in the bottom of the 9th to at least, the worst thing there, I guess, would have been a loss, but really the worst thing there would have been extra innings of any kind.
That is correct. Not only do you have the Joe Ryan weirdness, but you also had, Carson McCusker, who's been waiting, for his first major league start for, 27 years or something like that, playing in indie ball a few years ago, finally gets his first major league start. Well, then the game gets suspended. And then they're no longer facing a left-handed pitcher. So he gets 1 at-bat in his first start and is replaced by Kody Clemens, who not only gets the game-winning hit, his point in the order came up several different clutch times during that game, and those would have fallen to Carson McCusker. He would have been the guy in that place for that. So, yeah, it was weird.
And then the second game, which started like 34 minutes later or whatever it was, felt sort of like a team saying, we took the first game, who cares? Let's just get through the second game. They lose, 5-1 or something like that. So it's a split, one of the least enjoyable series ever at Target Field, I think. There were very few people there. The players weren't thrilled about it. The press box wasn't thrilled about it. So to go 1-1 against Cleveland, whatever, it almost felt like, especially in the wake of ending the 13-game winning streak, kind of like a little bit of a reset, and then also you get the Thursday off day, which is another reset. So it was like you had a lot of downtime there, and it's not necessarily ideal. You want to play games when you're playing well, and you also don't want the downtime when it involves double headers and rain-shortened starts because that screws up your rotation. They get the Thursday off day. Now they get the Kansas City Royals for 3 starting tonight. We're recording this Friday morning, so starting tonight, Kansas City Royals, and all those 3 teams are basically tied for second place: Cleveland, Kansas City, and the Twins. And they're all looking up at the Detroit Tigers. So I don't know. It'll be an interesting series because Kansas City is the only team in the American League, I think, with a better ERA as a staff than the Twins, but also they've lost a couple of their starters to injuries recently. So we'll see how that goes. My assumption is it'll be kind of a low-scoring environment at Target Field, although I'm praying. I haven't even looked. I'm scared to look that the weather will be slightly less horrific for this weekend, but we'll see.
And while that's going on, we've got Cleveland facing Detroit. So it's a good weekend to be tracking the AL Central.
So They finished the 13-game win streak comes to an end. That's it's the second longest in Twins history. They had a 15-game winning streak in '91. If you choose to take that as a great omen, that's fine. Anything 1991 related. It's always funny how it all comes back to that. When they get off to a bad start or they do any like specific thing, people can go, hey, that also happened in '91.
Yes.
Yeah, well, we'll see. They also won 12 in a row last year, and from there, things went pretty well for 2 or 3 months after that, and then the bottom fell out. So it's not predictive, but it's nice to. They're sitting now as we speak at 27 and 22, which, like I said, is basically in a 3-way tie for second place. But it also puts them in playoff position as a wild card team. And there's basically, what does that mean? 13 games left or something like that.
Yep.
Plenty of time, and now they're in at least if you kind of want to consider this a restart of the season, they're in a much better position, and honestly, they're not that far off, and if anything, they're slightly better than, projections coming into the season, over-unders coming into the season, our personal viewpoint of them coming into the season, all of which was like, somewhere in the 83 to, 87 win range, I would say. And 27 and 22 is above that, and they're in a pretty good position here. We're going to talk in a moment about some of the injury updates, and how's the wood there? Are you ready to knock on it, John? I'm going to say a statement. An absolutely absurd statement for a podcast covering the Minnesota Twins.
Here we go.
They are on the verge, theoretically, hypothetically, of having like a fully healthy, planned opening day lineup together for the first time this season. Now, Correa is expected back tonight against the Royals after missing the minimum time on the concussion injured list. It sounds like Buxton will not be quite ready, but I'll get an update tonight, so I don't really want to speculate too much, but it sounded like when last we heard on Wednesday, he may not be too far behind. Buxton's situation concussion-wise, and they both suffered concussions, so those are brain injuries. Those are very unpredictable just in general. But with Buxton especially, he has a history of concussions going back to the minor leagues. I think he's had 2 or 3 previous concussions, and also he suffers from migraine headaches. So it kind of makes it difficult to assess or evaluate symptoms when he's not immune to having sensitivity to light, blurred vision, headaches, that sort of thing in general. So I think that held back Buxton a little bit more than Correa, but also, we've seen in the past with a lot of star players, unfortunately, with the Twins, concussions don't behave normally. Like the recoveries from these are not like a broken bone or a strained tendon or something. It's very different. Each day is a different day, basically. So, but theoretically, if Buxton is not far behind Correa, and then also Matt Wallner hit 2 homers last night or yesterday in his first rehab game with the Saints. So it's looking like he's, barring a setback with his hamstring injury, he could be close to returning too. And, the key to the whole thing, the reason why they've never had their full lineup is Royce Lewis, because he got hurt in spring training and missed the first month. So he's back in the lineup. So that would be, at least for evaluation purposes, like from our point of view, it would be nice to see what this lineup, like what their intended opening day lineup looks like. And now, like you mentioned, they've also added Kody Clemens to the mix, which is one silver lining from all this, that he's, for at least 50 at-bats, he's emerged as, someone they at least want to ride that hot hand until it's not hot.
That's right. Yeah, and fill the one spot, second base, which they had questions about even coming into spring training as who's going to take that. Clemens has been a nice fit there. So,
yeah. Although my assumption is that it'll just be Brooks Lee mostly at second base, but
I would think
you
so
can
too.
play Clemens in left. That Harrison Bader's come back down to earth a little bit of late, and he's also been banged up with a groin injury. So maybe you take some of those starts that Harrison Bader had been making against righties, which we've talked about endlessly since spring training, basically, and you give those to Clemens. It's not a bad thing, obviously, to have 10 or 11 guys that you want to put in the lineup, because for a lot of the last couple of weeks, they've had like 3 or 4 guys they want to put in the lineup. So I'll take this, I guess, over that.
Well, especially when you've got some guys limping around a little bit, like Willie Castro, despite not really going. I don't even remember if he really went on the IL or not, but he just doesn't seem to be running at full speed, etc. So,
well, yeah, he was on the IL. He's had they're separate. Like he's now banged up for a third time this season,
exactly,
or something like that. So also lost in the 13-game win streak and the rain-soaked split against Cleveland. The Twins, the first game of the Cleveland series was their 10th consecutive home win, which is the most home wins in a row they've had since they won 15 in a row at the Metrodome in 2006. And like I said about 91, like everything comes back to 91. Whenever there's like a winning streak related tidbit or like a hottest 50-game stretch or whatever, it's always 06.
Yeah, it's August and September in 06 when they made that charge and caught up to the Tigers.
Yeah.
Or was it the Tigers?
And then a lot of good that did.
Right.
Hottest team ever, swept out by the Moneyball A's, who hadn't, other than beating the Twins, hadn't done anything in the playoffs.
I think that was also they had the Cy Young winner, the batting average champion, and the MVP, and got swept up by the A's.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know why I brought that up, John. I don't know. I mean, I do know. My brain doesn't function that well, but
you're just depressed after the Wolves losing last night. That's it. We know what's going on here.
Yeah, I wasn't going to mention I wasn't even going to mention the Wolves. So that's the kind of reset, and we can talk. Let's talk a little bit more about like the Correa. We don't know for certain that Correa will be back tonight, but all indications that I've heard, because they sent down Ryan Fitzgerald, the 30-year-old career minor leaguer who made his debut because of the Correa injury. Didn't get any hits, sadly. I think he went 0 for 2 or 0 for 3, something like that. But he goes back to St. Paul last night. We've joked a little bit that they seem very prone now to, when possible, sending someone down a day before so as to not pay them an extra day of service time, which is kind of interesting. They've done that now about 10 times this season with 5 or 6 different players, which whatever, it doesn't really impact anything. But you could have had him on the team for the off day, and he'd have made an extra $4,200 or something like that. But bigger picture, Fitzgerald goes down. He's a utility infielder, so that, and just behind the scenes, it sounds like Correa is ready to go. So that'll be good. Hopefully Buxton to follow. Although as of Wednesday. Trying to get these days right. Yeah, as of Wednesday, the Twins trainer, Nick Paparesta, told us that Buxton was, quote, a little bit behind Correa because of the issues I discussed, the previous concussions and migraines and all that. But he had started baseball activities, which is, hitting and running and taking some fly balls and being out in the elements and all that stuff. But also, whether it's with Wallner at AAA or Correa and Buxton at Target Field, the weather impacts that too, because it's like, you can't have Wallner running the bases with a bad hamstring when it's, soaked out there. So that's something to keep in mind too. But my assumption is, and who knows? I mean, Wallner hit 2 homers last night. They could just decide, let's bring him back. But my assumption is we'll probably see Wallner and hopefully, I guess, Buxton, although I'd want to know more about that later today before I say that for sure, on the road trip, which is a 10-game road trip starting Monday.
Right.
They go Tampa Bay, Seattle, and then Sacramento, which was Oakland.
Yeah. Who, by the way, is not playing nearly as well as they were earlier in the season, which is nice to see. Nice to run into them right about now.
Yeah, and Tampa Bay's not up to their usual standards either, although Seattle is in first place. So we'll see.
They were last I saw.
A 10-game, almost no matter who you play, a 10-game, 3-series, 2 coasts road trip is going to be taxing on a team. Just, I don't know, mentally, physically, whatever. So, I don't know. We can talk a little bit more about the Kody Clemens experience.
Before we do that, should we talk about our first presenting sponsor quickly?
Yes, let's talk about the Black Stack experience.
Black Stack Brewing. I am in Denver here, where there's a bunch of breweries that I'm going to check out, and I have been checking them out. I will tell you, as good as and Denver's kind of known for its beer scene. They were one of the original cities that really kind of leaned into it. I will tell you, I will put Black Stack Brewing's hazy IPAs up against anything I am finding here. The one thing they do really well that they lean into is beer. And fortunately, we are now at the point where they have grown with distribution enough to get a new distributor, and so now you can now find them in your local liquor store. You don't have to just go to their tap room on 94 and 280, which is a great tap room. I'm not going to discourage you from going there. They have even more selection there than they do in your local liquor store, but you can also find them in your local liquor store from Minnesota, all over Minnesota, from Grand Marais to Rochester, Winona to Fargo. They've got the New England 755 local New England IPA. They got the Slopes French Pilsner, Pull Tabs Pale Ale, Uncut Jams. If you attended the Twins Daily opening day party, you've tried them. If you attended the Winter Meltdown, you have tried them. But you don't have to attend any of our events. Just go check out your local liquor store and try them there. So Black Stack Brewing. So stop by Black Stack Brewing near 94 and 280, or even easier, ask for them at your local liquor store.
Okay, so let's talk about like a reset. Before Correa returns, and hopefully soon after Wallner and Buxton, let's just say they are currently 21st out of 30 in OPS and runs scored per game as a lineup. So that'll be kind of a, I don't know, we can, plant a flag at this point of the season and see the extent to which that improves or doesn't improve once they get healthy. Because that's the funny thing about all this. Like, we had questions about, well, first of all, we know better than to ever think it'll be fully healthy. And, like I said, I can't believe I'm saying that, even as a hypothetical. But,
right.
Certainly they've had stretches this season where the lineup has resembled more of like a AAA lineup. Like, they've just had to turn to random guys or waiver claims and guys like that. Now, some of those have popped off and looked good. Clemens in particular. Jonah Bride hasn't looked bad. But also some of them just haven't produced much, like Deshaun Kersey, Mickey Gasper, etc. So, I think we were both pretty, I don't want to say pessimistic, but kind of skeptical about the lineup as a whole coming into the season because of how things ended last season. And some of those questions that we had were about guys like Julian and Miranda, who are now struggling at AAA.
Right.
But I'll speak for myself. You tell me what your thought was on it, but I certainly didn't expect them to rank like 21st in offense. Like, even with the skepticism, I thought they'd be more, in the, 13 to 18 range, something like that, I would say.
Well, I think we both identified the two big factors coming into this. First of all, I think you're right. We both thought that the lineup was going to be the weak spot or the most concerning part about this team. I think we were both sort of like, yeah, they need to be like middle of the road, 15th, right. Somewhere between like 10th and 15th overall was kind of what you were looking for, because I think we both had a lot of faith in the rotation and in the bullpen, and that has borne out the way we had hoped. In fact, it's probably even better than I think we had hoped right now. But, the two big factors that we identified, even in spring training, were the first factor is always health, right? How healthy is it going to be, especially some of the bigger bats, right? And for the most part, with the exception of Royce Lewis, we've gotten starts at least. I don't know exactly how healthy Correa is, but we've certainly seen more health from Buxton than we expected to be seen. Now, Wallner went down as well. Lewis went down. So, the health thing, I don't know. I don't know if it's any different than we probably should have expected. But yeah, the second one was, how are these 20-somethings that, have not really developed into everyday regulars, or, have been kind of on the verge of everyday regulars, which are, Brooks Lee, Edward Julian, Miranda, even I would say Larnach to some extent. How are those guys are they going to take the next step forward to the point where we're actually going to see kind of what we expected from them? And, I guess we've seen it a little bit from Lee. We had kind of a 50-50 on that, right? We've got Larnach is okay. He's kind of doing what he did last year. Lee has been, I think, better than we thought after, missing some time with some injuries as well early on in the season. But yeah, Julian and Miranda have obviously backtracked quite a bit. So yeah, I don't know if, I agree that it's nice to be getting a fully healthy lineup here, and we'll actually get to see if they do move up from 21st into more that we were talking about. But overall, yeah, the lineup's been a little worse than I thought it was going to be, and I'm not sure that maybe our expectations were too high on 10 to 15, because I don't know that we could have anticipated. I guess I expected more from Miranda and Julian. I was probably too optimistic about both those guys. So,
right. They both played their way into a demotion. Julian hit 198 with a 70 OPS plus, which means he's 30% worse than the league average, which is always 100. Looking at, let's see, Miranda hit 167
Right.
with a 15 OPS plus, which is basically like you're not hitting at all. And then even, you mentioned Brooks Lee. That's all in the eye of the beholder because he's hitting 235 with a 657 OPS. That's
All
pretty
right.
bad.
All right. Yeah.
He's had some good moments. He's shown more power than he did last year, which is a positive sign. But overall, not particularly good. And then it's also there's some guys like I'm thinking Ty France. Let's say he's got 24 RBIs and he's come through in a lot of
right.
spots with runners in scoring position, and so that's led to some wins for sure. But he's hitting 253 with a 672 OPS. That's an 88 OPS plus at first base. And he had no Gold Glove winner over there. So that's pretty bad overall production. You mentioned Correa has been the worst regular on the team, which nobody could have predicted. He was great when we saw him last season. So
Right.
Larnach's been the best of the bunch of the guys we mentioned, and he's got a 106 OPS plus as like a left fielder / DH, that's still probably below average. But yeah, this lineup, I guess it's not so much that I think, get these guys healthy and they'll take off. It's more get these guys healthy so we can actually sort of assess what we have here instead of trying to figure out some of these placeholder guys and these rookies and all that. Like, let's get the group that they want out there, whether or not you're high on them or low on them or skeptical of them or whatever. Let's at least get that group out there, the 9, 10, or 11 guys that they want to be playing regularly, and let's see what they can do for a month. And then maybe as you near the trade deadline, you can actually start to assess, like, is Ty France who you want at first base? Is, Brooks Lee ready for prime time? Are you still, going forward with someone like Larnach as a big part of your lineup? And maybe by that time, someone like Julian or Miranda or someone else from the minors will have stepped up. And also, for being honest, by that time, the perception of Kody Clemens might be quite a bit different. I'm hoping it's not. I would love to see him be just a late career breakthrough guy, and he'll be a part of the lineup for a couple years, and that'd be wonderful for the Twins. They really could use something like that. But, we've seen this story before with some similar guys where it's 50 great at-bats. I don't even want to say good at-bats. Great at-bats for Kody Clemens. But, there's a reason he was available for nothing 3 weeks ago.
Right.
But we'll see. I don't know. I wrote this a couple days ago. He, to me, was the MVP of the 13-game winning streak in terms of, best offensive numbers, biggest hits, highest WPA, all that stuff. It was Kody Clemens. And there were plenty of candidates for MVP. Pretty much everyone played well during the 13-game winning streak. But he really stood out. And then to have him a couple days after the streak ends, deliver the walk-off double against the Guardians, too. It's been a hell of a run for him. I don't want to make light of how good he's been, and also some of the improved batted ball numbers and bat speed numbers and all that stuff. But
there's some stuff underneath the covers that are optimistic that some of this could maybe continue. Yeah.
Yep. You mentioned McCusker. On one hand, I'm glad that he did get called up. He hit 350 with 10 homers in 38 games at AAA. He wasn't just good at AAA. He was just an absolute monster at AAA. But it seems like they're not really intent on playing him. Like you said, I didn't mind them pinch hitting for him, but
sure,
they didn't have to do that. They could have just let the guy hit, especially in the 4th inning or whatever it was. So I am curious to see. My assumption is that when Wallner comes back, he'll be sent down. So
yes.
He might not even have
maybe even Buxton.
Yeah. Well, I guess my assumption is Wallner will be back before Buxton. But yeah, I could be wrong on that too. That's semantic maybe. But once they're both back, that's a little bit of a trickier scenario because if let's say Wallner comes back Monday, it's pretty easy to just send down the other big slugger that you just called up and have him been playing, which is McCusker. The same position, same body type, same profile to some extent.
Right.
But if Buxton is also back either before then or during the road trip, whatever it ends up being, that would, I think, because Clemens is going to be safe at this point. So then the only real candidates would be Deshaun Kersey, who is a center fielder that you can send down and has been used very sparingly and also hasn't really performed, although he had the great walk-off as part of the winning streak. or Jonah Bride, who actually hasn't been a bad, role player for them. But with the infielders healthy, I don't know how much playing time he was really going to get anyway. So I think it would have to be McCusker, whoever comes. Let me put it this way: like if whoever comes back first from Buxton and Wallner, I think it will be McCusker sent down, and then whoever comes back second, I think it would have to be Bride or Kersey at that point. And I guess, I don't know. I mean
it's got to be one of them, and I'm not sure which one it would end up being. Which one gives them more flexibility here?
Bride has been more useful to them, and he's performed better to them. But also, does his role completely vanish when you have a healthy Correa, you have Lewis, you have Lee, you have a healthy Castro? Like, where is he really playing in the infield? And Buxton returning also makes Kersey's role vanish, except Kersey's kind of on the team regardless of how big the role is anyway. Like, his role is pinch run, play a defense for a few innings. And so I think they mind less just having him kind of collect dust. But I think those are probably the two candidates. Again, I realize the absurdity of going through hypotheticals of what even 48 hours in advance of what happens if everyone gets healthy, because you're almost guaranteeing someone will, I don't know, have some catastrophic injury on the field probably in the first inning tonight. I'm going to feel bad when that happens because people can hear this. But
that's right.
The other thing, the Correa return, I think, probably pushes Brooks Lee mostly to second base. Then, what do you do with Clemens? I think Clemens, I would say you could play Clemens at first base because, like we just talked about a second ago, France hasn't been that productive, especially, against righties. You might prefer Clemens as lefty bat. But Clemens, in the very small window we've seen him at first base, looked pretty rough at first base. Like, maybe it was just a couple of bad moments, but he had 2 or 3 opportunities to scoop balls and came up empty on him. He has played a decent amount of first base. I think, you could play him in left field over Bader with like Larnach or Wallner at DH. They're going to have to do some mixing and matching, which that's better than the alternative.
But you don't have a full-time DH anywhere, so you can do a lot of and you've got Castro that can fill in a lot of places too. So,
John, you sound like you're going to die soon, buddy.
I'm okay. I'm good.
Even worse than normal. Yeah, I know you're. I don't care if you. I don't care if you live.
I'm having a stroke, but I'm
worried about this. The sound quality is really my concern.
All right.
The podcast we play at your funeral, I want it to sound good. That's really my. Let's see. Any other? I'm trying to think of some other lineup related. I mean, it is a shame that they can't count on Miranda and or Julian. Although, when everyone is healthy, I don't know where they would have necessarily fit anyway, and that would kind of bring us back to prior to Lewis's injury in spring training. One of the storylines, and you would know better, you were actually there talking to people every day, but one of the storylines was like, is Julian even in the plans? And sort of similarly, like, where's Miranda in the plans? So if it's kind of a reset to, let's say, March 15th, right before Lewis got hurt, was there really room for Julian? Like, where would he play? We're already kind of talking about Clemens in the same way as a lefty bat that you're trying to find a spot for defensively, DH, second base, that sort of thing.
I mean, the thought process was pretty clear, which was that they wanted some veterans to try and push those guys so that to try to get them to perform a little bit, right? Give them some competition. They wanted some competition for Miranda and Julian so that it provided a level of incentive, but also, took a weight off of their shoulders. You didn't have to rely on them to produce to be able to, have a productive offense. And what they have, oddly enough, that competition has come from Kody Clemens, right? I mean, it's come from outside the organization, which is not something they talked about during spring training. So,
yeah, well, and it was initiated, Clemens and Jonah Bride, kind of the same boat. They were both DFA'd by their former teams. Twins swooped in right before they were on waivers, paid, some nominal fee to pick them both up. That was initially because of injuries, and that included an injury to Miranda. But, it doesn't say a whole lot about where these guys are at. And, Miranda just got healthy and he's hitting 150 or something in a handful of games at St. Paul. But, Julian's been playing at St. Paul for a little while now and hasn't really produced either. It doesn't speak all that well about these guys that, the Jonah Brides of the world and,
Right.
even someone like Kersey might have more utility to the roster than these guys. I mean, they're going to both have to hit their way back, I think, because as we've seen, just because they're healthy and playing on the 40-man roster well at AAA, the Twins have kind of gone out of their way not to call them up. I mean, even if we're going to get real simplistic, they were allowed a 27th man
Right.
for the second game
Right.
Wednesday and called up Mickey Gasper just to sit on the bench, which is fine. But, that could have been Miranda, it could have been Julian, but I don't think they wanted to interrupt what they're doing developmental-wise at AAA, and I also don't think they really felt like kind of rewarding them, and I know that sounds harsh, but like Gasper's been playing well at AAA, so even to just call him up for a day and give him $5,000 and let him sit on the bench, I don't think Julian and Miranda had put themselves in a position to be rewarded as small as that reward is.
Yeah, I mean, we've been looking at lineups for the last week, which have Brooks Lee batting third, Kody Clemens batting fourth, who was picked up off of waivers. They absolutely had room for those guys in this if they were producing. They call up Carson McCusker and Ryan Fitzgerald. They had plenty of room if those guys were having any productive at bats at St. Paul to be able to find room for them in the lineup. There's been plenty of opportunity here, and they haven't called them up, which just tells you everything you need to know about sort of how it's been going for them.
Yeah.
So.
One other lineup note: they moved Luke Keeschel to the 60-day injured list, which means he is ineligible to return before June 25th. And I know that people go, "Oh, that's a month away." Well, he was going to be out for at least that long with a broken forearm, which happened on April 25th. They, of course, won't tell an actual timeline because they refuse to do that now. But the initial assumption was like 2+ months. So it's more of a paperwork move to move him to the 60-day IL. I mean, there's still hope that he would be back, let's say early July, something like that, or mid-July, somewhere around the All-Star break. But my assumption is, as good as he was for a week, he's going to be asked to play quite a bit on a rehab assignment whenever he does get healthy. And it could be a situation similar to what we saw a couple times with Alex Kirilloff in past years, where by the time he returns, the need for him isn't quite as great. And so then he's just sent to the minors as a normal player. Although, again, I feel the need to tell everyone. A month and a half from now, surely multiple new guys will be injured, so there will be a need for them. Before we switch to a little bit of pitching talk, let's talk about our last couple of sponsors here. Our first one that we want to talk about is BetterHelp, and I did think of this as I was sitting in the press box just watching rain fall for like 3 days.
Yeah.
I thought maybe I should talk to someone about this and the feelings that it inspires in me. And here's how BetterHelp works. Like if you wake up one day and whatever issue you have going on that you feel like I should talk to someone about, and you're motivated on a particular day to do it, you might not be motivated the next day or the next week. And anything that can kind of throw you off track or have a roadblock towards talking to someone can be pretty bad. So BetterHelp is very helpful for that, because you can set up and talk to a real licensed therapist, and they can typically set it up within a few days. And the beauty of it is, if you want to do a video call, you do a video call. If you don't want to be on video, you do a phone call. If you're like me and you hate phone calls, you can just do a live chat with them and type back and forth. They can kind of tailor it to whatever you're comfortable with, and they can find you a real licensed therapist who specializes in whatever you want to talk to them about. And if you visit betterhelp.com/Gleeman today, you get 10% off your first month. We're all better with help. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Gleeman, and you can start talking to someone very, very soon, and maybe get some help with something that you've been thinking about as an issue. That's BetterHelp, HELP, BetterHelp.com/Gleeman. And our last sponsor
is Acorns. Acorns is an app that helps you with your investment. I get it. It can be intimidating to start thinking about investing. It is you're worried about doing more harm than good. You're second guessing yourself already. The last thing you want to do is start throwing money around when it seems safer to just kind of sit on it, but that's probably not the best thing to do. Acorns takes all of the intimidation out of financial investing. It's a financial wellness app that makes it easy to start saving and investing for your future. You don't need to be rich. Acorns lets you get started with the spare money you've got right now, even if that's just spare change. And you don't need to be an expert. Acorns recommends a diversified portfolio that can help you weather all of the market's ups and downs. You just need to stick with it, and Acorns makes that easy too. Acorns automatically invest your money, giving it a chance to grow with time. So, you just download the app, you check it out. It's easy to use. You will have no problem with it. You will be surprised how little you are allowed to invest and how easy it is to, experiment a little bit. We've used it. You will have no problem with it. Just get started. So all you do is you sign up now, and you join over 14 million all-time customers who have already saved and invested over $25 billion with Acorn. You just head to acorns.com/Gleeman or download the Acorns app to get started. And now here comes the disclaimer. Paid non-client endorsement. Compensation provides incentive to positively promote Acorns. Tier 1 compensation was provided. Investing involves risk. Acorns Advisors, LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor. View important disclosures. acorns.com/Gleeman.
Okay. While you were so eloquently reading that, I love the disclosures part especially. That's my favorite.
Yes, that's my specialty. Yeah.
Yeah. The Twins made it official. Carlos Correa activated from the concussion injured list and will be presumably in the starting lineup and playing shortstop tonight against the Kansas City Royals. So we're right about that. That's good.
It's kind of nice that he got a 7-day rest as well, given the concerns we had about his wrist and everything else with him. So
yeah, we'll see. I'm gonna annoy him and ask him about that exact thing tonight when I see him in about 5 hours from now. So we'll see what he says about that.
I'm sure he hated it, but his body might have appreciated it. We'll see.
Yeah, he's been hesitant to talk about the details of the wrist injury, other than saying initially that it had hurt him since last year. But then some of the follow-ups on that, he's been like, that was where he came up with his now infamous quote where he said, "The only thing I'm dealing with is a swing that sucks," or something like that.
Right. Yeah, that's it.
But that was also a clever way to avoid talking about the wrist specifically. But some of the best quotes, and it's probably true of us on this podcast even, some of the best quotes come from people trying to avoid actually talking about something else.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like people turn to humor sometimes, or they figure it's almost like this. I'll say an amusing quote and it'll cover for what I'm actually being asked about. I guess I do that all the time.
That's what the media guys want anyway. It's a clever quote, so that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, that works. It's a much better headline. It's we my God, we give an award at the end of the season to the best quote, essentially.
Right. You're not auditors, you're entertainers.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Media good guy. I've annoyed my fellow BBWAA members with this thought many times, so I'll annoy you with it as well, which is media good guy to me. I get it. It's like, the most media friendly or the most quotable or the most available player and all that. But good guy to me, you don't have to be a good guy to be a good quote.
Well, that's true.
And in fact, some people who are good quotes are terrible people. You know what I mean? Like some of the and the flip side, some of the best guys, the nicest, kindest, smartest people are terrible quotes.
Right.
There's no correlation, and I think I brought this up the year. I say we, but I certainly didn't vote for him. But they gave the Media Good Guy award to Josh Donaldson. And my point at the time was 30 years from now, when people look at the list of Media Good Guy winners, they're going to say, were there 2 Josh Donaldsons that played for the Twins? So I always thought that was funny. But he was a good quote because he's nuts and he talks a lot, kind of like me. Pitching. Let's talk about pitching. We've been so lineup focused here, but
yeah. You were talking about the MVP of the 14-game winning streak. I was like, and it being Clemens. I was going to point out that's got to be from the lineup standpoint, because I don't know exactly who to give it to from the pitching side, but that 14-game winning streak was just driven by insanely good pitching.
Yes, I agree. Although it was more of a group
team
effort.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
You're
The
right.
thing about, well, and actually, I'll read you the numbers here because I wrote about this. I tried to do a MVP ballot for the 13 game winning streak. So what I did was I just took wins above replacement and win probability and mashed them together to come up with a number. The issue, I guess, with when you're looking at such a small sample, is that the starting pitchers, they only started 2 or maybe 3 games during that stretch, and they were all great essentially, other than Simeon Woods Richardson. But like Clemens leads everyone, even including the pitchers, in that sort of quick and dirty method that I just described. It went in just in terms of raw number, WAR plus WPA basically. It was Clemens, Bader, Buxton, and then you get into all the pitchers: Paddock, Duran, Ryan, Lopez, etc. I mean, the pitchers were almost universally good except for Simeon Woods Richardson, and then of course except for Zebby Matthews, who ended the streak by subbing for Simeon Woods Richardson. So other than the 5th spot in the rotation, the pitching was great. I kind of said, to reset this thing, and I said they're 21st in OPS and runs scored as a lineup. Well, we can do the same reset for the pitching staff. As of right now, 49 games into the season, they have a 3.28 ERA as a pitching staff, which is 3rd best in the American League behind the Rangers and the Royals, who they're about to face for a 3-game series starting tonight. And that includes the 2 terrible starts where they allowed like double-digit runs overall in the first turn through the rotation. If you look at the pitching staff since April 1st, which is now 45 games since April 1st, they have a 2.95 ERA as a staff, which is, of course, the best in the American League. It's hard to beat a sub-3 ERA as a team. So, I mean, the extent to which pitching has carried them, I don't think can be overstated. And that's kind of why we're so focused on the lineup, because any sort of marginal improvement or better health or whatever from the lineup can be so meaningful when the pitching has been so consistently great. Because if you can squeeze out, one more run a couple times a week from the lineup, given how low scoring these games have been, because the pitching's been so good, that could equal 1 or 2 more wins a week. That's what they're going to need. They don't need to look like the Bomba squad for this team to win. This is more of a 2023, try to win a bunch of 4-2, 4-3, 3-1 games. And they've done that pretty well, obviously, over the last couple of weeks. But that's why the health and the sort of, having the full complement of hitters, it's not that we think they're going to be a great lineup, but if they're even a competent lineup with this level of pitching, I mean, they could really be dangerous, and be dangerous in October too, much like they were in 2023.
When you have the 21st ranked lineup, it's really hard to be 5 games over 500. You need to have a pitching staff that is absolutely top tier, and that's what it's been. And in fact, I'd also say, we saw this pitching staff, other than, like you said, that first couple of clunkers in March, perform well even when the team was 7-15, right? They were still performing well at that time. And what we saw is what you just said, which is the lineup went from completely dismal to, a little below average, and that was enough to change it from a 7-15 team to a 13 game winning streak, right? Like, that's overstating it, right? But your point is, I think it also illustrates to your point, which is this team doesn't need to be a top 5 ranked offense. They need to be somewhere in the middle, or get up to 15th, get up to 12th overall, provided the rotation and bullpen continue to perform like they are.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think, like you said, when the offense was terrible, they were still winning some games because of the pitching, but the offense was getting shut out. They were scoring one run, and the talking point at that stage was, you're just wasting so many good pitching performances, and also they had some bullpen blowups in there too that didn't help. But I mean, I think it was even starting to wear on some of the pitchers a little bit. You started to get these little, and look, I'm not saying they criticize the lineup at all. I mean, they're being good teammates, but you start to hear these little comments about like, it's just a shame we couldn't get a little more support, or a pitcher might say like, I could use at least a few extra minutes in the dugout between innings, if take a little more time to make the 3 out. Like, you start to hear stuff like that, and you start to go, ooh, I bet this is just grating on the pitching staff a little bit. But they get back to semi-competent, and look, they've probably been slightly below average over the last month, but during the winning streak, they were scoring, at an average-ish or slightly above average rate. And you start to see what was possible then. And you also start to see, if you can put together 3 or 4 runs and the starters are holding teams to 0 or 1, it also changes the entire management of the bullpen in that now the bullpen can operate without the fear of one bad pitch changing the entire game. They can give up a solo homer, or they can give up a single and a double, and it doesn't change the entire outcome of the game. So I think that helped too. And the bullpen has stepped up in a big way.
I think 3 to 4 weeks ago, this lineup was 28th or 27th in the major leagues. Right? They've climbed up to 21st, and just that much improvement has gone from a really dismal team to a team that we were worried about people getting fired to a team that looks like is currently in the postseason, right? Is currently qualifying for the postseason. So if we can get a healthy lineup here and get some runs on the board, I'm really excited about Wallner coming back. I'm excited about seeing where Buxton is if he comes back here soon. Royce Lewis starting to play himself into a hitting shape. It could be a very interesting end of May, beginning of June here.
Now, the fear, of course, is that it's not guaranteed that the pitching will remain as good.
Well, that is true.
Whether performance or injuries,
it almost can't. Right? I mean, there's going to have some regression to the mean here at some point.
Right. I mean, you got a 320. I'll say this. If this continues, it would be the best pitching staff in the history of the Minnesota Twins. Like relative to the league and the scoring environment and all that. Like they've had some lower numbers in the 60s or whatever when no one was hitting, but pre-DH and all that. But, a 3.28 ERA in 2025, if that continues, relative to the league, that's a performance you have not gotten, or at the very least have extremely rarely gotten over the course of 6+ decades with the Minnesota Twins. So yeah, I mean, odds are that's going to regress a little bit towards the mean. You also have the injury factor whenever pitching is at play. We've already seen they bumped Simeon Woods-Richardson from the rotation because he was really the only lagging performance there. They replaced him with Zebby Matthews, which I was all in favor of and I remain in favor of. And then Zebby Matthews goes out and looked fantastic. First inning, first 2 innings, even into that 3rd inning. Yeah. He's throwing 97. He was striking people out, and then he walks the bases loaded, which is so uncharacteristic for him that it made me think there had to be. I know they were not thrilled with the strike zone during that, but that is just so. I mean, he went months last season and the year before without walking 3 batters. So for him to walk the bases loaded, and then of course that ends up coming around and hurting him. He leaves early. He's going to get another chance during this Royals series, obviously, and. I don't think he's pitching start for his job to hold that spot, but I will say that Simeon Woods-Richardson had a very good start last night.
I was going to point that out. Yep.
At AAA, his first AAA outing since rejoining the Saints. I think he threw 6 innings, 1 run allowed, 8 strikeouts, either 0 or 1 walk. He's doing what he needs to do. And we talked about this a couple episodes ago when we were breaking down the decision to send Simeon Woods-Richardson down. I had no problem with that decision. I think his performance warranted it, not only being subpar, but kind of trending in the wrong direction from a control standpoint. A reset for him, I don't think, was a bad idea, but we even said at the time, and I certainly believe it now, they're going to need him again. This is not slamming the door on Simeon Woods-Richardson for this season, let alone future seasons, because Zebby's got to perform here in this spot. They're not going to hand him this spot for the rest of the season if he doesn't have some good starts and consistency and, live up to the billing as a strike thrower with great raw stuff. But then the other thing, and this is worrisome, is David Festa, who, if healthy, might have gotten the call up to replace Simeon Woods-Richardson over Festa, or over Zebby, I mean. Right. Hasn't pitched for 2.5 weeks now because he was initially skipped from a start at AAA with arm fatigue and then was lined up to start a few days ago and was scratched from that start with similar issues. So I think they are saying it's, I want to say inflammation. I may not have that right, but arm fatigue, basically. I don't think he's been placed on the AAA injured list yet, but he's now gone over 2 weeks without pitching. So that's a worry. And if Festa is sidelined or compromised for any length of time, Well, that's a big chunk out of the depth that, we've talked about and they've sort of been very proud of. Then you need Zebby to perform, and if he doesn't perform, you turn right back to Simeon Woods-Richardson, or your alternatives at AAA at that point are like Andrew Morris, probably, who had a nice start last time out. So, that's the thing about starting pitching depth. It may seem like you have a lot of it and quote unquote too much of it because you're sending one or two guys that you really like to AAA, but there's no such thing as too much starting pitching depth. It goes away in a hurry, and it tends to snowball. And we also see guys like Zebby Matthews, while promising and while I'm a believer of him long term, and I think the Twins are too, there's growing pains that happen too. So I think these next one or two starts for Zebby, including versus the Royals, will be pretty big. But Simeon Woods-Richardson pitching well at AAA would also be key, because I don't think they would be against the idea of turning back to him if he puts together a good, 3, 4, 5 starts at AAA. I mean, it's not they certainly have not soured big picture on Simeon Woods-Richardson, and if anything, I think they felt like the demotion was like giving him a chance to kind of catch his breath and reset and start to climb back into their plans a little bit. It's complicated because they have a decent collection of young starters here. So there isn't going to be long-term space for all of them in the rotation, but short-term in this season, I think everybody's going to get used for depth. But yeah, the Festa thing, I'm a little worried about.
The depth is important, and it's still important. But part of the reason that this rotation has been on such a run is because Paddock has just been very good. I think better than we anticipated him being, or over the last couple times through the rotation. So, I mean, actually, he's been pretty good ever since basically after his second start. He's been pretty consistently at 5 innings pitched, etc. But, last two of the last 3 really, really pushed and did well. There's no guarantee he doesn't regress a little bit as well. So it's nice to have that depth for that. And it also explains one of the reasons why the rotation has been so valuable effective over the past 2, 3, 4 weeks is you could count on 4 guys being, really good, as opposed to just the 3 that we, had a little more faith in earlier in the year or before the year began.
He went 7 or 7 plus twice during the winning streak against San Francisco and Baltimore. And here's his numbers so Paddock got destroyed by the White Sox in his first start. He gave up 9 runs. And so it's going to take months for his ERA to come down from that, no matter how well he pitches.
Right.
But since that horrible first start, he's made 9 starts. He has a 2.59 ERA in 49 innings over 9 starts. Now, to your point, I mean, first of all, that's great. I mean,
unbelievable.
He deserves a lot of credit for turning things around like that, for figuring stuff out, making some adjustments, because given the fact that he missed the entire second half of last year, and given the overall question mark surrounding his health and his effectiveness and all that stuff, he gets rocked for 9 runs by the worst team in the league in the first week of the season. It's like, oh boy, here we go. He's cooked. He's got a 2.59 ERA since then. But I will say, as much credit as he deserves for putting that stretch together, he's got 33 strikeouts in 49 innings during that stretch, which is that's bad even for 20 years ago. It's terrible now. And a 33 to 15 strikeout to walk ratio. What's done him in has been these moments where he seems like he's cruising, and then he'll just walk 2 guys, and that's it. And we saw that against Cleveland, which in the second game against Cleveland, and he talks about it the same way every single time afterward, because he's very critical on himself, and he certainly thinks of himself as an extreme strike thrower, and rightfully
which he has been.
Looking at his career.
Yeah, you're right. Yes. I mean, overall for his career, walking has never been a problem for him. Right.
Right. His career numbers coming into the season, 1.9 walks per 9 innings, which is fantastic. I mean, that's Brad Radke-esque almost. This year, 3.3 walks per 9 innings. So he's gone from way better than average to slightly worse than average. And it seems like they've been sort of clumped together, these walks, where it's not that he's walking 3 guys per start. It's that 2 or 3 of those walks come back to back in the 5th inning or the 6th inning or something like that. So I don't know. My level of skepticism with him is still pretty high, just because I think that the underlying numbers, strikeout, walk, all that stuff, don't really match the very shiny 2.59 ERA.
Sure,
But
right.
I also think his raw stuff to me has looked pretty good. And he's, the key is the velocity has not been a problem really for him. It's been, can he get swings and misses with 2 strikes? Can he get swings and misses with the changeup, which used to be his go-to pitch and hasn't really been for a few years now? So I don't know. That's definitely something to watch. Zebby Matthews' performance in the 5th spot is definitely something to watch, and then Festa's health is definitely something to watch. And then the last thing I wanted to say about the pitching staff was bullpen-wise, they lost Danny Coulombe to the IL with a strained left forearm, which is, I think, kind of an under-the-radar big blow to the relief corps. Like, you look at his ERA and it's yes, he's got a 0 ERA in like 17 innings, which says enough on its own. He's also stranded 10 of the 12 runners that he's inherited, including some, 5th innings where he'll come in like for Simeon Woods Richardson with 2 guys on base and he'll get out of the jam. Like, those have been some big game-changing moments. And so his WPA, win probability added, is second best in the bullpen behind only Joan Duran. So that speaks more, I think, to the impact he's made without pitching the highest leverage spots, but he's pitched like these. He's been sort of the fireman, put out fires, not unlike Theobar, who he replaced effectively in the bullpen. Theobar, going back 2 or 3 years, used to do that. He'd come in the 5th or 6th inning, he'd get out of a jam, and the ERA, shows how good he's pitched, but it kind of undersells it because of the inherited runners.
Yes.
I got a chance to talk to Danny Coulombe, who is a very fun guy to talk to. He is leading the charge. I don't know if people have seen on TV or you've seen. They have a bullpen catcher named Frank, who they are basically feeding Red Bulls to during games.
Yeah.
Like he's chugging Red Bulls. Basically, they're making like a whole routine out of it. And I think the goal is to make him like a social media star of some kind. I heard the phrase NIL money uttered by several of the relievers because, I don't know what a bullpen catcher makes, but it ain't that much, I'm assuming. So I think they're trying to get him a little bit of a fun payday. And I think Danny Coulombe is the veteran at the forefront of that. But he's a lot of fun to talk to. And he certainly is giving off the vibe, aside from trying to get the bullpen catcher rich off Red Bull, that the injury is not that big of a deal.
They're either trying to give him get him a media endorsement or a cardiac arrest.
Yes, whichever comes first.
My God.
Yeah, it's been interesting to watch because I often watch when I'm not there. I often watch the games with the sound down. I like the Twins announcers now. I think their announcing is as good as it's been in my lifetime. But I'll be working on something or whatever. And it like 3 times a game they'll show the bullpen.
Right. Yeah.
And at first I was like, what is happening here really? Like what there's some guy on his knees and they're dumping something into his mouth. And then I realized it was Red Bull, and then they got like almost like a dance routine around it, and it's like what is happening here? So I got that explained to me, and then after that I said, "Oh, by the way, Danny, how's your arm?" And he basically said, I've been dealing with this all season, which isn't great to hear, obviously, but he's pitched effectively all season.
Right.
And his point was, I'm 35 years old. Like, this is just part of being 35 years old, more so than, oh, no, my arm is a problem. It's like, let's give him a break here. Now, we've heard players say that sort of thing before, and it proves to be a more serious injury. But I guess there's at least some level of optimism that he could be back within, a couple, 2 or 3 weeks rather than 2 or 3 months, something like that. But Nick Paparesta, the Twins trainer, was asked about Coulombe, and it was phrased similar to how I just phrased it, which is like, Danny says he's fine. And Nick, so when's he going to be back? And Nick Paparesta was basically like, listen, when he can start throwing symptom-free, he'll be back.
Right,
so
yeah, that's right.
We'll see on that. But that is it puts Cody Funderburk into a bigger role, or a role.
Yeah.
And so that, not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, if Coulombe misses, let's say, 3 weeks, and during that 3 weeks, Cody Funderburk is asked to get some lefties out in the middle innings and does a good job for a handful of appearances, hopefully Coulombe then comes back, but you've also got a little more confidence in Cody Funderburk, because I think ideally they would like more than one lefty in that bullpen.
Of course.
We've seen that in years past where having two lefties can really help you, but you need it to be two effective lefties. It doesn't help you just to throw left-handed if you can't be counted on in spots. And over the last couple of years, their confidence in Cody Funderburk has waned a little bit because he's been injured or he's struggled. So, maybe this is a window. I'm not going to say it's like Kody Clemens, but, sometimes these injuries or, it opens a window for someone else to climb through. And sometimes if the injured player comes back, you can be a little bit better off because someone else has taken advantage and shown something that makes you more confident in them. And I think it's at least an opportunity for Cody Funderburk to do that. And, so far he's pitched okay in a few outings, but we'll see.
Well,
So
but we also really haven't seen him put into any kind of even medium leverage situation right now, or maybe we did the first time up. The last couple times it's been pretty much mop up stuff. So we'll see at what point they actually have enough confidence to throw him into, that type of role.
Yeah, it's a little catch-22 because, like you said, they're not going to have him replace Coulomb because that would be in game-changing spots. So you got to kind of work your way into that. But then the other thing is their bullpen has been so good and so deep. Now they're all righties, but that they've just been using other guys in place of Coulomb in the 5th or the 6th or the 7th. I mean, we've seen some big outs by a lot of guys, including, Justin Topa. Even Alcala's had some good moments over the last 2 or 3 weeks. So, Cody Funderburk, he's a lefty, and they're down a lefty. But, you're not going to be handed that spot because that spot can still change games, and I think they're still a little skeptical of him. Let's see. I think that's all I got for ahead of this series. We'll be back Monday morning.
Yeah, Monday morning. Well, Patreon.
We'll be back Monday morning on the Patreon side. And if you've enjoyed these free shows, we got to tell you, we usually do 2 shows exclusively for Patreon listeners in between every free show. And sometimes we end up doing more than 2 shows. So we do a Monday morning show and we do a Wednesday morning show almost every week for Patreon subscribers. And the beauty also, by the way, commercial free.
Yes.
If people want that. So we'll be back on the Patreon side Monday morning to recap the Royals series and then hopefully have some meaningful updates on Wallner, Buxton, and various other injured players. And that'll be exclusively for Patreon subscribers. So if you want to hear that first thing Monday morning, it's Patreon, patreon.com/Gleeman. And then we'll also have a midweek episode there too. And if not, that's fine too. You can just keep listening to the free shows because thanks to our sponsors,
which
we bring it to you for free.
This time, those sponsors were Acorns and BetterHelp. And our presenting sponsor, we want to give a special thank you to, is Black Stack Brewing, which is now being distributed to all of Greater Minnesota. So just stop by your favorite liquor store or the Black Stack Tap Room, grab your favorite brew, or try something new. And we will be doing, like I said, got Patreon. You've got now you have the ability to kind of try it out for a month. See, if you've enjoyed the 14 or 13 game winning streak and you want to keep up, start listening with the full lineup back. Just stop by patreon.com/Gleeman. Give it a try. I think you'll like it for a month.
If not, we'll see you next Friday. Same
Bye-bye.
time, same place. Goodbye.